This video is for you if you scan everyone's mood before you relax, if you monitor people emotionally. I don't think we talk about it enough. When I bring this up with clients or students, there's usually this moment where people go quiet for a second, something just clicked. So I'm curious if this lands for you too. Have you ever walked into a room and just felt it before anyone said anything, before anyone even looked at you? You just felt the tension or the irritation or this weird heavy silence that is very much not the peaceful kind. And your body already started adjusting before your brain even caught up. Like you kind of shrink a little, or you get warmer, more helpful, more chatty to try to dissolve whatever is in the air, or you go quiet and start running through your mental catalog of everything you said or did recently, trying to figure out what caused this. And the thing is, most people who do this have no idea they're doing it, like none. They think they're just a sensitive person, an empathetic person, maybe even they're proud of it. And I'm not saying that's wrong, because a lot of emotional monitors genuinely are perceptive and attuned in ways that are real gifts. But what's actually happening underneath that? That is something I call emotional monitoring. And today I really want to get into it, what it is, why some people develop it, what it costs you, and what it has to do with your relationships, your attraction patterns, your sense of self, and your ability to rest. So, emotional monitoring at its core is this: a pretty much constant, mostly unconscious habit of scanning the emotional environment around you constantly, not occasionally. There's a part of your nervous system that is always running a background check on the people near you. Is she upset? Did his energy shift? Why is there that tone in their voice? Why haven't they texted back? Are they pulling away? Did I say something? Are they disappointed? Are they angry? You name it. And it looks like attunement, maybe. It looks like emotional intelligence. And there are elements of that, of course. But there's a big difference between being in tune with people and being in surveillance of them. One comes from connection, the other comes from a need to feel safe. Because that's what this is really about: safety. At some point, your nervous system figured out that tracking other people's emotions was a way to stay okay, to avoid being caught off guard, to maybe even prevent something from happening, something bad from happening. Nervous systems are very good learners. When something works, we keep doing it. So it gets wired in, and then it stops being a strategy and it becomes you, your personality, identity. You're the one who always knows when something is off, the one who people say is so intuitive. You're the peacemaker, the helper, the one who just gets it, gets people. And that can feel like a gift, and in many ways it is, but it's also exhausting in a way. And it's exhausting in a way that's hard to explain to people who don't experience it. Because here's the thing: nobody really talks about the fact that emotional monitors are tired, specifically tired. Sleep doesn't fix it. There's this kind of fatigue, I think, of as emotional surveillance exhaustion. And it is what happens when a significant portion of your cognitive emotional energy is constantly going outward, toward other people, toward reading, interpreting, tracking, managing. And what doesn't get talked about is what that means for everything that's supposed to be going inward, toward yourself, toward your own feelings, your own needs, your own sense of what you actually want. I can't tell you how many times I've sat with someone in therapy, in conversation, wherever, and asked them what they need or how they actually feel, and they just pause. They look genuinely uncertain. And it's not that they're disconnected or cold or unaware. It's that they have spent so long being oriented toward everyone else that their own inner signal has gotten really quiet, like a radio station that keeps getting drowned out by all the other noise. And there's also this guilt thing. Emotional monitors feel guilty resting, even when they're exhausted, because some part of them feels like if they stop scanning, something might go wrong and they'll miss it. Like the monitoring is somehow keeping everything okay, and if they let go of it, things will fall apart. So they never fully unclench. Vacation, even with close friends, even alone. Now I want to bring in something that I've been researching and writing about for a while now, because I think it's the deeper layer underneath emotional monitoring, and that's emotional absorption. Monitoring is what you do behaviorally: the scanning, the tracking, the reading of the room. Absorption is what's happening inside your nervous system as a result of all that contact with other people's emotions. Because some people don't just notice emotional atmospheres, they take them in. They actually absorb them into their bodies. You walk into a room with someone who's stressed, and by the time you leave, you feel stressed. Not because something stressful happened to you, but because you were in contact with that stress and it got in somehow. You have a conversation with someone who is quietly angry. They're not yelling, not even saying anything directly, but you leave feeling guilty or ashamed or just kind of unsettled, and you don't know why. You spend time with someone who's grieving and you carry that heaviness around for the rest of your day. And again, some of that is empathy. Empathy involves resonance. You feel what other people feel to some degree. But there's a really important difference between resonating with someone and hosting them. When you resonate, you feel it and it moves through you and you come back to yourself. When you host, and this is the concept I use, emotional hosting, you take it in and you hold it. You process it, you carry it around as if it's yours, as if it's your job to metabolize the other person's emotional state on their behalf. And emotional monitors are almost always emotional hosts too, because once your nervous system is organized around managing emotional climates, the line between I feel that you're in pain and I'm now responsible for your pain gets really blurry. And you can spend years carrying things that were never actually yours and feeling heavy, anxious, dysregulated, emotionally contaminated, and not understanding where it's coming from because none of it started as your feeling. And here's something I want to bring up that I think rarely gets connected to any of this, but absolutely belongs in that conversation. Envy. Specifically, the kind of envy that emotional monitors experience when they look at people who seem easy, unburdened, relaxed in social situations. People who walk into the same room you just walked into and just exist there without running the whole internal surveillance program, without absorbing everything and everyone, without feeling responsible for the emotional atmosphere. And there's this ache that can come up watching that, not just admiration, something more complicated, something that's like, why does that seem to cost them nothing when it costs me so much? That feeling is often envy. And I want to say something about envy here because I think it gets a really bad reputation. People feel ashamed of envy. They suppress it, they deny it, they turn it into something ugly about themselves. But as envy researcher, I can say, I can 100% assure you that envy is actually one of the most honest emotions that we have because it's always pointing at something you genuinely value. It's like an arrow. And when the envy is specifically about someone else's emotional ease, their relaxation, their sense of safety in relationships, their freedom from the monitoring, that arrow is pointing directly at what you are longing for, not their life arrest, their ability to just be somewhere without all that emotional labor. And that longing is worth taking seriously because it's telling you something really important about what healing would actually feel like for you. It is not abstract, it is very specific. That ease, that unclenching, that's what you're moving toward. And I want to talk about relationships also for a minute because this is where it gets really interesting and also kind of uncomfortable. Emotional monitoring changes who you are attracted to. Because when your nervous system has learned to associate emotional work with emotional closeness, when that experience of tracking and decoding someone and never quite knowing where you stand has become familiar for you, then someone who is calm, consistent, emotionally available can feel boring. And someone who's warm sometimes and distant other times, who gives and then withdraws, who you can never quite read, that person feels magnetic, alive. There's something there worth figuring out, like a puzzle. And your nervous system goes, yes, this is familiar, this is real, this is chemistry. But a lot of the time, it's not chemistry. It's your monitoring system getting activated. It's the nervous system doing what it knows how to do, scanning, tracking, trying to solve that uncertainty. Intermittent reinforcement is genuinely one of the most powerful psychological hooks there is. When you don't know where you stand with someone, when the affection is inconsistent, your nervous system becomes more focused and preoccupied, and as a result, more invested, because the uncertainty itself increases your attachment. And this is why some people find themselves completely consumed by relationships that are actually not that nourishing, because the emotional monitor inside them is working overtime, trying to get clarity, trying to earn stability, believing that if they just explain themselves well enough, or become valuable enough, or figure out the right thing to do, then finally the nervous system will get to rest. But those relationships rarely lead to rest. They usually just intensify the monitoring. They feed the pattern rather than soothing it. And connected to this, emotional monitors often have this really strong urge to explain themselves when they feel misunderstood. And a strong urge, almost unbearable sometimes. If someone misreads you, if they seem to have a negative impression of you, if they withdraw after a disagreement, for some people that is not just uncomfortable, it is destabilizing. The nervous system responds like there's something dangerous happening that needs to be fixed right now. So you send the long text, you bring it up again, even when it seemed like it was resolved. You over-explain, you revisit, you keep circling back to it over and over again. It is the monitoring system doing what it learned to do, restore harmony, because harmony means safety. And one of the quieter milestones of healing is when you can be misunderstood by someone and just let it be. Not because you don't care, but because you've internalized at some level that you can survive relational discomfort without needing to immediately repair it. So what does healing actually look like? I don't want to just describe this pattern. I want to talk about what moving out of it looks like in real life, because there are pros and cons of emotional monitoring. So first, I want to say healing doesn't mean becoming someone who doesn't care. Of course not. It doesn't mean losing your sensitivity or your attunement. Those things are genuinely part of you, and they are brilliant gifts worth keeping. What it means is developing a different relationship to other people's emotions, learning through actual experience that other people's feelings are information. They are not emergencies. They are not your responsibility to manage or resolve or absorb. They can exist near you without you having to do anything about them. It starts small, with just noticing. Noticing when you're scanning, noticing when someone's mood immediately pulls you out of your own experience, noticing when your body tightens around uncertainty, noticing when you stop feeling your own feelings because you've pivoted entirely toward managing someone else's. That noticing, just that noticing, begins to create a tiny bit of space between stimulus and response, between this person seems upset and I must now do something about it. And in that space, choice starts to become possible eventually. The other piece is just being around safer people, honestly. Just actual lived experience. People whose emotional states are relatively stable and just stable. People you don't have to brace around. People whose presence allows your body to stop scanning. Because the nervous system learns safety through experience. You can understand this pattern completely, every word of what I just described, and your nervous system still won't fully believe it until it has enough repeated experiences of I stopped scanning and I was okay. Nothing fell apart. I was actually okay, all good, I'm safe. I think what emotional monitors want most, is, if they are really honest with themselves, is rest. Not a completely different life. They don't want to stop caring. Just to be in relationships where they don't have to work so hard, where they can stop analyzing, predicting, managing, and stop bracing. Just relax, unclench. And I think that's one of the most profound things a person can actually experience. Not a breakthrough moment, just the very quiet, very simple experience of being with someone and realizing that your body is not bracing, that your monitoring system is not running, it's off. You're just there with them and it feels okay. That is what safety actually feels like. It's the absence of chronic hypervigilance. And a lot of people don't know how exhausted they've been until they feel that for the first time. And when they do, something shifts. Something starts to believe, maybe for the first time, that it doesn't have to be this hard. I don't have to monitor all the time. So if any of this resonated, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Did you recognize yourself in this? And have you ever experienced that kind of emotional rest? Or is it still something that you're looking for? Let me know. I hope you have a great day. Take care.